Good morning. This is Gavin Wasserman.
Good morning, Commissioner Wasserman. We were just waiting, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We do have some special guests from the Berkeley and Davis Law Schools who will be introducing later, but welcome. Thanks for coming. And I'm just going to jump right into the agenda. Are there any public comments from anyone regarding an item that is not on the agenda today? Okay.
Jody, I have a quick comment.
Okay, sure.
Well, I just wanted to thank Jody for the op-ed piece that ran in the paper last week on the work of the commission. I was really impressed with it, Jody, so thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. And before we get into the substantive items, we'll take roll.
Commissioner O'Darrow, Commissioner Kasher,
Here.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Here.
Commissioner Wynn,
Here.
Chair Remke.
Here. Thank you. Okay, so with no public comment, we will jump to item 2, and it's the approval of the January 2016 meeting minutes. Do the commissioners have any comments, corrections, or is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the minutes from the January 2016 meeting.
Second.
Commissioner Kasher,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Remke.
Yes.
This motion passes.
Okay, so we'll move to the enforcement consent calendar, items 3 through 28. Good morning, Ms. West. Do the commissioners have any items they would like to take off the consent calendar? And again, this is not regarding questions or comments, just items that need to be removed.
Yes, I need to remove item 24.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Gavin Wasserman. I'd like to remove item 18.
Okay, 18 and 24. Are there any other items from the consent calendar? Okay, then we'll go ahead with the remaining items. Do the commissioners have any comments or questions?
Yes, I had a question.
Go ahead.
I just had a question on item number 4. It looked to me like there were 4 distinct years that income wasn't reported, but it was 2 counts. And I just hope that you might tell us, how we came up with 2 counts when it looked like there were 4 years.
Certainly. Galena West, Chief of Enforcement. This was an interesting case because it started off as a conflicts case. So we were looking at it for conflicts, and it was referred from the internal investigation that was done in LA. And although some of the counts did extend back, we took the most current counts because his interest wasn't all the way prevalent back then. It wasn't worth very much. So we just took the 3 years, which were the ones that had the most income, and charged those. And this actually did not qualify for streamline because it was an interest that was before his business. So that's actually a good reflection of how our streamline works and how you can fall out of streamline. Okay. So that's how we did the 3 counts in coordination with the case that came before you in May. I think it was May. Yeah, May of 2015, the Victor Uno case. So we tried to do it identically to that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have questions, or I guess more comments or concerns about item 5. It's a default matter. This is the respondent's second time before the commission. She received a warning letter in 2012, and I think the proposal is sufficient, 2 counts at $10,000 because of her failure to participate. I guess, and because she still is in office, this case, I guess, really bothers me. And I'm wondering what we can do. And I think my first question is about, assuming we approve the $10,000 proposed fine, what are our options for collecting on that fine? And in particular, can we go after any open campaign account she may still have to get the money?
All good questions. And she should be up for re-election this year, so we'll be looking closely at that. But our collections process is something that we've revamped this year to where we're trying to make it more efficient. So we are more aggressively pursuing fines that go through default. And one of the options is to attach to her campaign bank account. And that is something that we're going to be looking into in the future.
I think that would be a good idea if, in fact, she opens another campaign. And then these types of cases where it is a default, it is a campaign non-filer, do we ever look into subpoenaing those records since we do not have her still filing? So it's still the great unknown.
We generally do when, for instance, now that it's election year, we will, if she continues to be a non-filer, we'll not only bring another case against her, but we will also subpoena her records in order to find out the level of activity. In this case, for a general non-filer of campaign, we look at her last statement, which was filed at the end of 2012, and the balance was $1,500, and there was no activity of raising funds. So we didn't expend the resources in order to get the bank account information. But generally, when it becomes an election year or they're up for re-election, or there's any indication that there's activity, we do go forward and get the bank account information.
Okay.
Ms. West, I have a question if the chair's finished.
Go ahead, Commissioner Wasserman.
Is there any contact, formal or informal, with the actual central committee for that county regarding this individual?
They do express their opinions in the press, but no, we haven't had much contact with them, no.
Oh, I was just wondering if they would be at all helpful formally to see about getting a response from this person, because this is a
Well, if she's not going to
sensitive-
respond to the 6 letters that have gone out from the enforcement division, I don't know what the committee is going to be able to do. Do you? I mean,
Actually, it's a different dynamic. And I really don't understand why anyone would ignore 6 letters. I'm starting there. I'm just talking about in terms of, there are tools in the box, and then there are other box tools, I suppose. It's just kind of interesting because I don't know what kind of account one is going to have to attach for a central committee candidate. It depends on the assembly district and the central committee. And, compliance is what we're really trying to get here. So I'm just trying to think outside of our box.
no,
Anyway, it's a thought.
No, I think it's a good point. I'm not. It's just from my point of view, how much do we want our enforcement division to be doing to force someone to comply when they're fully aware of their obligations and their failure to comply? That's kind of my point. And as far as attaching the account, I'd say $1,500 is better than nothing. And if that's what she has in her account, I think we should go for it. I think we
Sorry.
yeah.
Certainly, I'm just laying that out for Ms. West to determine whether or not the allocation of resources is justified. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I agree with you. In other cases, we have reached out to, whether they be on a board, we reach out to the city attorney or other individuals to try to talk to them, especially if we feel like there's some reason why they might not be filing and we find out some people are in the hospital or whatever. So there are a lot of contacts that happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Follow-up question. As a point of clarification, I see that she is named both as an individual and the committee is named. So for collection purposes, do we have the ability to lien property, if she doesn't pay the fine?
We do. We actually, as a matter of course, because it's joint and several liability, so she's liable for the entire amount. So we do property liens is our number one form, and FTB tax intercept. We also participate in that program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do the commissioners have any other questions or comments on the remaining items on the consent calendar? Is there any public comment for the items on the consent calendar?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, my name is Dan Jacobson. If I may direct you to item number 7. I am the chair of the Democratic Foundation of Orange County. And I have come here simply to say that I have instituted some internal controls that should stop this stop this sort of violation, and mostly to say that the foundation and I personally am and are very sorry. We apologize.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you for your time and your efforts to get in line with compliance. Okay, any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move approval of the consent calendar items number 3 through 28 with the exceptions of item 18 and item 24.
Second.
Commissioner Kasher,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Remke.
Yes.
This motion passes.
Okay, taking the items pulled from consent, first, item 18. Do the commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this item?
Madam Chair, this is Gavin Wasserman. I've asked this item to be pulled. But first I want to mention there is no one from the public here.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Item 18, I'm asking to be pulled, and I'm recusing myself from it. I guess I won't have trouble leaving the room. The respondent is a labor council, and a local under that council, which remits its dues to that council, is a tenant of a property owned by a limited partnership that I have a single-digit percentage interest in and disclose on my Form 700. The funds that are remitted to the council, it's kind of like a federal system. Money goes up and hopefully it comes back down. Same sort of thing. So therefore, this respondent is, in a sort of indirect way, a source of funds. And so there's a financial interest, and I'm accusing myself from this, even though it's a very minor case. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions regarding this matter? Is there any public comment for item 18? Is there a motion?
I move approval of item number 18.
Second.
Commissioner Kasher,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Remke.
Yes.
This motion passes.
Okay, item 24.
Yes, Madam Chair. I asked to have that item removed. The city of San Leandro is a client of my law firm. The individual who is the respondent in this particular matter is Mia Ousley. She ran for city council unsuccessfully in San Leandro, but she also sits on the rent review board. And so for that reason, I will be abstaining from a vote on this particular item.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Any public comment? Is there a motion?
I move to approve item number 24.
I'll second.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Remke.
Yes.
This motion passes.
Okay, moving to the enforcement informational item, item 29. This is a no action item, but we definitely want to take a second to pause and congratulate Ms. West and her entire enforcement division on the excellent work they did to achieve this result. And perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about the process and the amount of work that went into getting to this result.
Certainly. So this was a proactive investigation, laundering investigations that we do, and then we notify the local jurisdictions to work with them. Orange County District Attorney's Office wanted to work with us, so we've been doing a joint effort in Orange County, not only in this case, but in other cases as well. And over the last couple years, we went down and participated in interviews together and gathered information and really put a lot of work into it. The lead investigator has moved on to a peace officer job, Lee Myers, and then Ann Flattery and Paul Racy took up the reins. And Ann's really done a lot of work cleaning it up, making it pretty for me, which I really appreciated. And so it was been a great investigation working with Orange County District Attorney's Office. So plea bargain came of this, and in the plea bargain, not only did probation and local fines, but also the $20,000 fine that will be paid to the general fund in satisfaction of our proactive efforts.
Well, that's great. The one issue I wanted to ask you about is, as you know, Section 85701 provides that any candidate or committee that receives laundered contributions must turn the contributions over to the general fund. So even though the candidate was not a party to this criminal proceeding, have those funds been turned over to the general fund?
Well, as is our practice, we send a letter to the candidates committee and ask for them to disgorge the funds. And we sent that letter on February 10th, and we asked for them to disgorge by March 9th. So we look forward to hearing from them, and they'll send us proof of the check to the general fund of $13,000, I believe it's $300. Yes.
And if those funds are not voluntarily turned over, what action do we take?
I believe that we then file with Superior Court.
Okay. And we would do that in this case.
We do it in every case. We ask for disgorgement voluntarily, and it's usually a friendly process. Most people don't want to keep laundered funds as a rule, so it's not usually an adversarial process. There's usually participation on both sides.
Okay, so maybe you could just report back at the next hearing if in fact we do receive that disgorgement, just so we can close the loop on that. Do the commissioners have any questions or comments for Ms. West on this item?
I just want to say great work, Galena. This is a very impressive cause of action. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Ms. West, I'm just curious, these kinds of money laundering cases.
Laundered campaign contributions.
Pardon me?
That's just, sorry, I was just calling it laundered campaign contributions. It's a issue that
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that. I understand that. I'm just curious, this was a joint investigation with the DA's office, and I know they have their particular resources in the community because they're down there. What do you know what they're doing to sort of get the word out about this kind of violation? It's the kind of thing that when you have these things, that the participants who are the intermediaries generally fall into one of three categories. They're either complicit, they are ignorant of the whole situation and indifferent, or and from my view, just as bad as the complicit, are being misled, abused, or pressured, such in the case of when you have very low-wage employees who are basically forced to be intermediaries. So enforcement is fantastic, and it's excellent to let know those who have the intent to be complicit, or those who have the intent to do these kinds of things, instigate them, to give them a deterrent. They should know that these things are out there. And with respect to the broader public, particularly in these various communities that I have seen personally as being sort of targeted for this, what sort of messaging is going out, if you know, locally, to sort of put a deterrent effect or an educational effect on this case for the future?
Well, I'm not entirely familiar with what the Orange County DA does on their reach out efforts, but I know that they did participate in a local board with us. We had representatives there as well to reach out to the local Orange County area regarding violations and their emphasis on what they're trying to do in the future, and they're trying to get the word out that way. And I also know that there are some very active newspapers and online publications in Orange County that report on all of this, and
right.
And do a lot of outreach in that way. And they have a lot of those local papers that go into those communities. And I think there's just a lot of a word been put out as a result of this case. So I'm not entirely sure what their local efforts are, but I know that the papers, and I know that some representatives from the district attorney went, as well as some of our legal division went down and spoke on the local level.
You make a very good point about the existing interest in the political process that generates news articles and essentially sent the message out. It certainly is in Orange County a great deal of interest in each of the elected officials and everything that goes on there. So, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. If there are no other comments, thank you. Moving to item 30, the adoption of the regulatory cleanup packet for the 2015 legislation. There are 10 regulations that will be amended and one that would be repealed pursuant to this proposal. And Mr. Wallace?
Good morning, Chair Rankin and Commissioners. Thank you. Good morning. As you've noted, this project or this packet actually includes 10 different revisions to the regulations, all of them resulting from 2015 legislative changes. So to give you just a little bit of the background on how we approach this, this entire project was a collaborative effort among most of legal division staff to look at all of the bills that went through last year and then look at all of our regulations to see where changes resulted. And these regulations were the ones that were identified. Now, in order to expedite the entire process, we did only focus on non-substantive changes. So we weren't going in to rewrite the regulations. We were doing what OAL would consider conforming changes. And usually the Office of Administrative Law requires that conforming changes don't need to go through notice or hearing. They're just filed and then they go into the print in the books. We did decide in the division that we would go forward and notice this just to see if anybody else caught things that we did not catch in going through the changes. And then speaking of things that we did not catch on the first go around, we do have one additional change. This is going to be to Regulation 18531.62. And when you get to that regulation, if you'll go to page 2, line 10. I see some. Anyone have it? All right. It's a minor change. Again, it's a conforming non-substantive change. There's a reference to 9002 there. That needs to be taken out. That was actually repealed. That statute was repealed in 2014. And the commission, I believe it was in December, actually adopted a regulation which contained the same definition. So what we're going to do at line 10 is we're going to delete the reference to Government Code Section 9002, and we're going to make that a reference to Regulation 18996A1. And again, that's the same definition that the Commission did adopt in December of last year.
This is relating to the audit program.
Correct.
Okay.
And with that, we would ask the Commission to approve all the changes as presented. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond to them.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the commissioners regarding the proposal?
No.
Okay, is there any public comment for the proposal? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
Yeah, I move approval of the regulatory cleanup.
Second.
Commissioner Kasher,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Rumke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mhm.
Oh. I thought I had it in the wrong place. Okay, item 31. Very pleased to have presented here. It is regarding the Political Reform Act revision project, and our executive director, Aaron Peth, is going to present it to the commission.
Good morning, Chair Rumke and commissioners. I'm incredibly pleased to formally present to the commission and the public our extensive project to rewrite the Political Reform Act. As we all know, because we had a large conference about 18 months ago, the act has been in existence for more than 40 years, and it's been amended by the legislature and initiative probably too many times to count. And as anyone who's ever read all or part of the act would agree, it needs to be reviewed and improved. And this type of project has been on commission staff's wish list for many, many years. I think sometimes people forget that our staff are the people that need to advise other members of the public. We write all the educational materials. We need to enforce the act and the regulations. And so when there's ambiguity, uncertainty, that makes our lives a lot more difficult, as well as members of the regulated community. So on behalf of the commission staff, I want to thank Chair Remke for her dedication and leadership to this crucial project. Efforts like this are not easy. They are not done overnight. They require a considerable amount of commitment, tenacity, and time. And so sometimes they often don't get accomplished. And they might not be flashy, but they're important and they make for better public policy, which is an outcome commission staff fully supports. And so the idea is that we're going to do a comprehensive review and revision of the Act. And through this process, we're going to streamline and simplify it to improve compliance and reduce technical violations, encourage participation in the political process by reducing the burdens and costs of participating in public service, increasing public understanding of the law to promote trust in the system, and strengthen accountability and enforcement efforts. And there's probably too many ways to say how the Act could be improved, but some of the highlights are redrafting it with plain English, trying to use the simplest, most straightforward language, incorporating key provisions from the regulations. As we know, our regulations are very, very long, and I think some of those potentially could be added into the Act to just make it clear for people, especially some of the definitions that are in regulations and things like that. Reorganizing the Act in order to have all the related provisions put together with self-explanatory titles of each part, excuse me, and repealing or amending current statutes that have been found inoperable by courts or other legal changes that are sort of happening outside of the commission. And so we are honored to have partners in this endeavor, including the law schools at the universities of California at Berkeley and Davis, and the organization California Forward. So the first step in the process is to have a draft produced by 8 law students. We have 4 law students from UC Davis and 4 law students from UC Berkeley. They're already working on a redraft for the first draft. And they're working under the leadership of Dean Kevin Johnson from UC Davis and Professor Carrillo from UC Berkeley. And Professor Carrillo and the law students are here today. And I don't know where they're sitting. Right there? Okay. So I wanted to go ahead and introduce the law students. We have Olga Bykov, Dana Cruz, Richard Johnson, Raina Shaw, Brandon Strasener, Anna Michael Zuckerman, and Itar Yakar, sorry. So
If you could just stand for a second so we could, and I'll just say thank you very much for your.
And Professor Carrillo is somewhere hiding. Oh, he's hiding in the back, but he just raised his hand. And so, as I said, they're already working on this. They're doing this semester and getting academic credit as a sort of an independent study class type of situation. And so we thank them for their hard work and dedication to the project, and we're happy that they can provide a fresh perspective. As we know, sometimes when you work in something all the time, you tend to just accept it as is. And so I think our approach is to have fresh eyes on it at the outset. So the anticipated timeline and the process for the project is laid out in the memo that I produced for the agenda. But the general idea is once the students are done, it will be submitted to commission staff so that we can look through it. And then at some point, there will be an advisory committee put together of different stakeholders, sort of the normal people that are active in our area. And they will then have the opportunity to review the draft and provide comment. And then a new version will probably be created, and then that will be put forth for public comment on our website. And we're still kind of working through some of those logistical details of how that comment, how those comments will be accepted and things like that. But we welcome all interested people to participate during those phases to ensure we have the best product possible. That's our ultimate goal here. And the goal is to have a complete final package put together to introduce to the legislature in the beginning of 2017. So essentially a little less than a year from now. So again, we're excited to be in this effort. It will help to increase participation in the political process, minimize the excuses of those who violate the act, and make our landmark Political Reform Act more accessible and current so that California can continue to be a leader in governmental ethics throughout the country. So with that, I'd ask for any comments or questions from the commission or staff, or public.
Commissioner Wynn, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Erin. I'm really pleased that we're doing this, and thank you very much to the law students. This is really going to be worthwhile. I have two process questions. So the first is about California Forward. So I understand that the law students are busy working with their professors and commission staff to come up with a preliminary draft, but where is California Forward in all of this?
So that we're still kind of working through that. But one of the idea is that California Forward can be sort of the project manager component for, especially once we are interacting with the advisory committee and the public review process, so that they can organize, just organize who is on the advisory committee, get the meeting set up, take all the comments, incorporate them, in terms of, or gather them together. And same thing with the public process, so that just because it is an election year and we're aware of that from our staff's capabilities, we only have so much time. And so that's the anticipated role for California Forward, is essentially sort of a project manager role.
Great. And then the second question is, so since the PRA was adopted by voters, is it your intention that this will go through the legislature, and once it's approved, it will go to the voters for approval? Or
no, it can be amended either by the voters or by 2/3 vote of the legislature. And so, and because the project is anticipated to be essentially a rewrite, it's not, our goal is not to change the substance of the act, is to just take current law and make it more understandable and accessible.
So who will make the determining decision about whether or not it is substantive or just procedural?
Well, we're going to, again, our goal as we go through the process and when we look at it for the final presentation to the commission for approval to present to the legislature, will be to stay within that realm of non-substantive clarification, streamline. So we are going to present it as a non-sub. Good. Something the legislature can do.
And the chair just said this, but we will be bringing obviously the proposal back to the commission for your vote to support it and all that. Hopefully December.
Definitely December. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the law students for taking the time to do this, staff for taking the initiative to take on this project. That this is a very significant undertaking. I'm sure that the regulated community will also have an interest in participating in this, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. So thanks.
Okay. I think there may be some people here who wanted to say something. Is that correct? Okay, let's go ahead and start with some public comments.
A frequent flyer here. Sean Mason, the city attorney for the city of San Mateo and the chair of the League of California Cities City Attorney's Department FPPC committee. And I just wanted to express our support for the goals of the project and offer whatever assistance that we can provide through the process.
Thank you. Any other comments?
My name is Caitlin Maple, and I'm a research analyst for California Forward. I'm here on behalf of our CEO, Jim Mayer, and he wanted to be here personally, but he's facilitating a workshop throughout the state. Just wanted to say that California Forward is really grateful to be partnering with the FPPC, and we thank you for your leadership on this project. Over the last few years, California Forward has informally consulted with senior staff, gathered information, and helped to think through opportunities to improve administration with the Political Reform Act, such as the Commission's efforts to make conflict of interest information available online and in a searchable format. We are looking forward to working with the Commission on a comprehensive review of the Political Reform Act and agree that the public will benefit making the law easier to understand, comply with, and enforce. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just note that we had 2 letters. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak? Oh, sure. But we did have, while someone's coming to the podium, Campaign Legal Center and Common Cause also wrote in support of this, but please.
Commissioners, Chuck Bell from Bell McAndrews and Hilltech. I'm speaking on my own here, but I'm very supportive of your effort. I think it's ambitious. It's long overdue. I think that it will be a challenge as you go, and I look forward to working with you on this too. Worked on some projects and task forces to look at substantive reforms to the Act, which are still needed, frankly. But I understand that's really not part of this project and would present some problems. I think one of the things you're going to have to look for is, as you go through this, the legislature continues to be in session. They continue to be active, and they'll continue to offer amendments to the Act as they have for 40 years. And I don't see any initiatives on the horizon. Well, there is one. I don't know where it stands right now, but that may have some impact on that as well. But again, it's an ambitious project, and look forward to working with you on it.
Thank you. The Act definitely is a moving target, so to speak, and there are bills pending, and that's why we think our timing is right on this project, because come December, we'll know what has passed or not, and we can incorporate those new pieces of legislation into the Act, maybe tweak the language even on what's been proposed, but again, non-sub. So I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge, though. Anybody else? Okay. Well, again, thank you to the law students. We look forward to working with you in the coming months. All right. Item 32 is the legislative update. And I would just like to take a moment to welcome Philip Ung, who is our new Legislative and External Affairs Director. So welcome, Phil.
Thank you.
So do the commissioners have any comments or questions regarding the pending legislation? Obviously, as we said last month, and I would just say again this month, it's early in the process. A lot of these things, as noted in the memo, are kind of in flux. And obviously, Phil has been in contact with the author's office on all of these bills. But anything in questions right now for Phil?
No. I have a comment though.
Sure. Okay.
I don't have any questions. Very nice report, Philip. And I really just want to welcome you. I'm really glad you're here, and I look forward to working with you. Thanks.
Similarly, excellent report, Phil. Glad to have you on board. And you'll probably be tasked with getting us all the votes for the Political Reform Act revisions, right? So best of luck with that.
No coincidence on a full-time position. Commissioner Wasserman, anything from you?
I just wanted to say welcome to Mr. Ung. Welcome back.
I'm just going to take, oh, sorry. Did I cut you off?
No, I was just going to say I'm looking forward to working with him. Thanks.
Thank you. Take a moment because I do have questions, or I think it's better described as ongoing concerns regarding AB 1200. It has been amended since we last discussed it when I raised concerns last year. I think from taking a step back, I have ongoing concerns regarding, first of all, most significantly, that I still have not heard a clearly articulated existing problem which this bill seeks to address. So it's very hard to analyze whether or not it would meet the goals if we don't even know what the problem is. And I know you, Phil, have conveyed that to the proponents in the author's office, but at this point in the process, and it's to me kind of surprising and a little bit frustrating. The other thing is the general direction in which this bill, and it seems that maybe some other bills that are coming up this year are going in, which is really expanding the scope of what we mean by lobbying to talking about procurements and contracting. And I'm just not sure that the Act and or the Commission is the appropriate place to regulate how contracts are entered into by the state. Obviously, we have the Department of General Services and a very, very, very extensive public contract process. So it's a concern I have that we're going outside what the goals of the Act are, focusing on the adoption of public policy when we talk about lobbying. And then more specifically as to this bill, I guess my concerns would be how it's been recently amended, and now there is a distinction between in-house lobbyists and contract lobbyists, and this bill would only apply to the contract lobbyists. But my understanding, at least from some preliminary discussions staff had with DGS, is that a vast majority of this process is done by in-house employees. So again, to the extent we think there is an issue here, that I'm not sure this would even prevent or address it. And then I will finally say, as I will say with anything regarding lobbying, and again, we are really looking into lobbying this year, a year of lobbying. I'm not sure how the author's office or the proponents think we're going to get greater disclosure on this activity through the existing system and forms that lobbyists register with the Secretary of State. How are we going to separate out procurement? We can't search it. There's no way to change the form. So I'm just not sure what we're going to achieve by this, other than having perhaps more people dumped into a system that already exists that's hard to search and understand and track. So I say all that because those are serious concerns I have, and the fact that this is still moving, and I haven't heard any of those addressed. I think it will be problematic for us to implement and enforce this law.
Madam Chair, Philip Ong, Legislative Director. Those concerns have been relayed to the author's office, and we have been in communication with the Department of General Services, and the governor's office has also inquired as to our thoughts on the bill. At this point, in its current form, the author's office is satisfied with where it is, and is intent on pursuing it all the way to the governor's office. So we will continue to work with them on amendments, but at this point, I think they've heard the substantial concerns and are committed to the current version.
Okay, did commissioners have any other comments on this bill?
I just had a question. I see that the commission, we obviously haven't taken a position yet on any of the bills. I know that you're in regular contact with the authors and working with them. Is there, do we anticipate that we'll be asked to weigh in on, sponsor, support these bills? And if so, do we have a time frame for that, or is that just kind of a fluid thing at this point?
Mm-hmm. Well, on the bill in question, AB 1200, it's currently sitting on the Senate floor, so it's in the second house. Because it's been amended, it would need to go back for concurrence and then to the governor's desk. It is eligible to be taken up next Tuesday. We're not sure whether or not the Senate will take it up or bring it in through their regular second-year process and kind of wait until March or April to vote on it. But there is time if we wanted to take a position on it. I think any legislator would be interested in our position. The staff hasn't made a recommendation, but we're happy to if that's something the commission wants us to.
Yeah, and I don't think we said this at the very beginning, but the bill introduction deadline for this year is tomorrow. And so Chair Rumke kind of alluded to it, but this past couple of months has been sort of sorting out what 2-year bills are still going to be alive, like AB 1200, and then what else is being introduced. And there's been a lot of activity even this week with new bills. So anyways, to answer your question, we're just kind of, after tomorrow, we'll have a much better idea of what the package looks like for this year. And then Phil will be bringing forward his recommendations at some point in the next couple months.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the commissioners regarding the legislative report? Okay, thank you, Phil. On the last item, 33, is the executive staff report. Are there any questions or comments for staff on the report?
Madam Chair, I had a more general comment for Ms. Pat, a question for Ms. Pat.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay. I was sorry. I was waiting.
Nope.
You'll get a procedure.
Thank you.
I
was distracted. Thank you.
Okay. This pertains to a matter that also was just brought up by the chair in discussing about the legislative update, and that has to do with the ongoing efforts to get technological fixes that require us to work with the Secretary of State, etc. I know that that's a very challenging process and has required all sorts of authorizations, statutory changes, etc. do we have any sense, or can we come back perhaps next commission meeting with an update, or anything that we can? Is there anything we can do to help us along? Because so much of the complexity and challenges for the public and for the regulated community lies in the technology.
So
and I know the chair is fully aware of this and is doing a lot of work in this area, but I just want to see where we're at.
So Commissioner Wasserman, just to clarify, you're talking about the current Cal Access system, correct?
As the tip of the iceberg.
Right. And I just want to first assure you that we are fully aware of the issue and problem, and I bring it up as many opportunities as possible that we need to really focus on this. I'm going to let Erin speak to her ongoing communications with the Secretary of State's office. We are, as we always have been, in continual contact with them, and she'll have a better update for you as to this actual project.
Yeah, so as the chair was just saying, we've been working, as much as we possibly can with the Secretary of State's office. I was actually over there yesterday meeting with them on various common interests we have, one of them being Cal Access. There's a lot of moving parts sort of on Cal Access right now. As one of the commenters alluded to, there's a ballot measure potentially pending that would affect how the process might play out. There's rumors of legislation about it. So I think in the next couple months, there'll be some clarity on what the legal landscape looks like in terms of there's a whole bunch of approval processes that are currently required through the Department of Technology. And one of the sort of circling issues is whether they can get waivers either through that ballot measure or through legislation to help speed it up. So they're kind of waiting to kind of see, what parameters they're going to have to work under. But in the meantime, they are already working with the Department of Technology to go down the path of all of the required documentation and business requirements that are needed to build the system. So, again, as the chair said, we are highly interested in moving that project forward and are working as diligently as possible, given that we don't control the whole thing. So, but yeah, it's definitely an issue, and we're actively working on it.
Of that, I am absolutely certain. I just felt it was appropriate, particularly with the various participants and people who are volunteering their time on the larger projects to hear these kinds of things said. You say, when you live it, you don't always think to point out what's going on, and you're living this, to use the ice analogy again, glacial process. But it's important folks know that it's a constant effort that this agency is putting towards the problem.
Yeah, and it's definitely important for us in our enforcement efforts, but also we are very frustrated sometimes when we cannot change the law in ways that we think are important because the technology is holding us back. So we either don't do it, or we have to do end runs around it, by which people have to file other forms here, or it just makes everyone's life more complicated. And so,
as we just saw with the lobbying regulation last month or the month before, whenever it was, about the tweaks we can only make or only go so far, and we're stuck with what we have.
So we're at a place. I think we're at a place where everyone knows the problem. It's how to solve it.
Thank you.
Public pressure. Okay, if there are any other questions or comments on the reports, otherwise we will submit them. Okay, they are submitted. And then again, unless there are any more questions from the commissioners, I will move to adjourn the meeting.
Commissioner Kasher,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Remke.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.